All right, we are live. Woohoo! So, for those of you tuning in to the Friday morning, we're actually at Fearless Fucking Fridays with Be Free, but I have two guests with me this morning. I know, woohoo! And so we're gonna have a really cool talk about movement and fitness, and they're gonna introduce themselves. But let me just tell you how I know them first. So the guy, the male in the room is my brother. So I've known him my whole life. I remember when he was born. And he's been an avid fitness person, social justice person. He's a very woke white man, if I could say that. And he connected me and Ashley, and we were actually supposed to meet right before COVID. We had a whole plan to like have a girl powwow at Derby Street, and I was like stoked. And I was like gonna talk. I was like being like, "Oh, you're gonna come to the retreat and you're gonna speak and you're gonna be on a panel, and I'm so excited about you." And then, wah, no retreat, no nothing. So
major wah.
Yeah, here we are in this forum, which I actually think is great because you know, we get to do this together, even though we're not together, and it gets to be recorded and shared and all that kind of stuff. So for those of you that don't know me, I know that most of you do. I am Ayanna Parrent, and I own Be Free Coaching and Wellness, and our mission is to help change people's lives through movement, mindfulness, and fun. I've also recently been doing a lot of social justice work on the Cape, and have been speaking and doing a lot of action and consulting around that. But I think the two worlds really collide well. I don't know that people can really, I could do social justice and action work without doing the movement and fitness stuff as well. So that's what we're going to talk about today, and sort of hopefully inspire some people to see how the worlds can collide, see how they can combine, and just make some change. And then, as always, if people want to chime in and just put comments or questions in the chat, we'll try to get to them as much as we can. So with that, Ashley, I'm going to have you go first and just introduce yourself, say who you are. You just told me that you were an actor before this, or you were in acting school, which I just thought was so cool. Have the Courage campaign. You do a lot of other stuff, and I'm just going to put out there that when I grow up, I want to have your body. I mean, you're freaking diesel, man. It's amazing. Every Instagram, I'm like, look at that.
I feel like I've had like biceps since I was like 6 years old. So this is legendary, which is when I started lifting weights. So I appreciate that compliment so much. Yeah, y'all. Hi, everyone who's watching. Like if you've listened to me recently, you know that I hate this question. Like, who are you? What do you do? And I know that I have to answer it, but I hate like putting a box around all of my madness and creativity. But so I work in fitness full time. So I teach strength classes. I'm a yoga teacher now. I have a 200-hour. So I will say I have a 200-hour. I would not say I'm a yoga teacher because a certification doesn't make you the thing. But I have my 200-hour. I speak out around social justice, which is something somewhat new for me at the level that I'm doing it now. I think I've always sort of said things, but the spaces in which I work have always been mainly white, which has made it very scary on a lot of levels to be this Black woman with big muscles talking about racism. It can be kind of aggressive, but now I'm at the point where I don't really care. I just want to say the truth.
Yeah.
You know, and
awesome.
Thank you. And I also co-founded a nonprofit with my partner, Mark, who we just announced that we're engaged. So like,
oh yeah, I didn't know that. Wait,
I didn't wear it, like, because I was lifting weights and I took it off and whatever. So Mark and I co-founded the Courage campaign which is a nonprofit using movement and intention to help people transform their fear. We do this through movement and journaling. We work with kids, we work with adults, we work with corporate groups. I don't know. I'm doing all kinds of shit. Can I curse on this? I'm doing all
shit, girl. You have not. We haven't spent a lot of time together yet.
Okay.
Ian's like every other word she curses.
Okay, I love it. So yeah, I think that's everything. I have a dog and 2 cats. I don't know. I'm a Capricorn. I'm from New Jersey. This is me.
Oh my God, I love it. I love the image of just like a Black woman with big muscles getting aggressive. Like, I just love that. No, I mean, I'm serious.
I know.
I'm serious because it's a really important image for people to have. I think as strength. Yes. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. All right, Ian, who are you and what do you do? Besides being my brother and living in my shadow.
Yeah.
Oh.
Wow. That was not part of the meeting beforehand.
I didn't slip that one
in. Yep. So my name is Ian Kilpatrick, and I work for InnerCity Weightlifting. I didn't realize you were gonna go so personal, Ashley. Now I'm thinking of like.
Oh, it's everything.
I'll get that.
It's all combined.
My wife Brenna is a yoga instructor, one of the best in Boston and the country. And then I have a beautiful daughter named Thea, who is 13 months today, actually. So that's kind of like my home, and 2 dogs as well. But I work for InnerCity Weightlifting, and there I'm the head of corporate partnerships. So I essentially connect our organization to as many companies and their workforce as possible in order to, one, increase our revenue, and then also to increase our awareness. The more companies we partner with, the more our mission has an impact. So our mission is to amplify the voices and agency of those most impacted by systemic racism and mass incarceration. So we do that essentially through community building, and our community that we build is focused around fitness. So the way that looks in practice is that we identify those that are most likely to be involved in street violence, and we invite them into our Dorchester gym to learn how to be a personal trainer. And then once they become a personal trainer through our certification program, they take on clients as if we were any other gym. So our Kendall Square location operates like a social enterprise where we have 150 to 175 sessions a week. We have like 8 trainers at the moment that are basically full time and earning a living and growing that income every year. So essentially, that's the really, really big outline of it. But I'm sure we can dive deeper into what it's a pretty like nuanced and really interesting model, and that's why I love my job, is because we're really trying to tackle the immediate issues, those that are growing up in neighborhoods where there's street violence, but then we're also trying to change general perspective of society of like who those individuals are, as opposed to letting the media or statistics or politicians control that narrative. We try to let them control that narrative by putting them in front of people from completely different backgrounds. So we do that through fitness, which is one of the few, I think, mediums where it would work that well. So I think that shows kind of the power of connection and community that movement brings. And I think what both of you all do is kind of the same energy, same power, but harnessed in a different way. So I'm excited to have this conversation.
Yeah, I think that's like if people wanted to put a positive spin on how to address sort of the prison to pipeline stuff, I mean, you guys are right at the forefront of what that could look like, which I think is so cool. And then before I ask this a couple other questions, I just wanted to I just wanted to share some stuff. I know because this morning I woke up and I was telling Ashley, like, I don't know that I want to do this. This feels really heavy to me, and I talk all the time, and you know, I'm an open book, so I like to share actually how I'm feeling on the on these things, which people tell me later is probably the most valuable thing they can get out of it. You know, but since we've been in talks about doing this conversation for a while, but since then, you know, Jacob Blake has happened, David has happened, the situation that happened in March, you know, he died or was killed, let me say, in March, but it's just coming out now. Chadwick, I know Ian, you called or messaged me and was having some feelings about that. Not obviously he wasn't a result of police brutality, but he was a really big loss to the community in terms of just people of color and that whole evolution that I think we sort of forgot about in all of this of what a hero can look like and what he represented. So I just wanted to put that out there and give you both of you some space to talk about it or not. And just to say any words about that. And then we're going to go more to the fitness end. And my dog's going crazy, so hold on. Here, I'm right here. Hey.
Hey, Ian.
Okay, go ahead. Sorry.
If you have something, Ash, you go for it. I just have a short little thing.
Yeah, I don't. It feels. I mean, I guess I do because here I am talking. But it just you see on the internet, like particularly in memes on Instagram, about how the images that we're seeing are actually desensitizing us to, right, the murdering of Black people of color, and I guess like that partly contributes to how I feel. It's just numbing at this point. It's unsurprising. And I think that's the part that hurts or makes me feel depressed. It's the fact that I'm not surprised anymore, or the fact that I expect it, or the fact that I expect to have a low-grade anxiety around police, or the thought of police, or if we drive by a police officer, if a police officer is behind us while we're driving, like anything, you know, those feelings are trauma.
Mm-hmm.
And it manifests differently depending on the week, the day, what else is going on in my life. And I guess that's really all I have to say about it. That feels incredibly sad to me, that this is where we are, and this is how a lot of us feel.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think the weight of it just doesn't feel like it's lifting at all. And you know, every video, every argument I see, you know, it just like I have to protect myself from letting it get me. I have to protect my mentality from it sometimes, because if I really take a deep dive into some of that stuff, it really affects how I present myself, you know, with my wife, with my daughter, and I don't want that to happen. So, you know, sometimes I catch myself thinking, like, what am I benefiting from, like, taking, you know, consuming this stuff, you know, like I have to remind myself that my full-time job, you know, is combating this, and that is, you know, it's not enough, but it's a lot. And also raising a child is a lot, and being a husband
that's
is
a lot.
So I have to catch myself sometimes and cut myself off of consuming it, because I know it's happening. If I see another video, I'm not going to be extra motivated. I am as motivated, you know, as one can be. So I don't know. It's like, at this point, it's like we watched we watch this shit happen so many times. It's like, what are these videos coming out or being shared? What are they doing for positivity? I mean, maybe they just belong in the courtroom now. Like, I don't know. I'm contemplating the role in the videos, because like Black people have known this all along from personal experience. Everyone else has known this for a long time, since cell phone cameras came out. So I don't know. I'm torn on whether they should even be going viral but at the same time, sometimes that does motivate people to put pressure, on politicians and DAs and all that. So there is value as well. So I guess where I'm at with it is like trying to find the appropriate time to like cut myself off, so that I'm aware of things happening, but not being dramatically affected by them. But it's really hard.
Yeah, and I just mentioned that just because it's not getting better. And in some ways, like, I had this false hope of like, oh my God, all these white people are like waking up and reading White Fragility and like doing all these things, and having their book clubs with wine, talking about how to treat Black people. But like, that maybe it would stop, but it's like, it's almost the opposite. It's like, it's just getting worse. And it's not getting worse. Obviously, what you're seeing is getting worse. And so that's really hard. And so I think people don't really understand. I think particularly for people of color, what we're seeing right now is just everything is trauma. Like, every single thing is traumatic. It's on the news. You put on Facebook or whatever, and it's like, it's constant discussions about race right now, and not in a great way. So I think it's really hard. And
the internet is
it's a freaking
as much as it brings to the table as far as information sharing and amazing people doing amazing things that you can read about. It's also like, it's not the place to like, it's not real. Like, it's not where shit is actually happening. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like, shit is happening in your personal life. And I have to remind myself, I'm like, all right, this is the internet. I don't even know some of these people that I'm like getting worked up about.
And some of the stories aren't real. Like, I got to tell people all the time when like I do coaching and stuff, it's like, some of the media right now has a certain agenda, and some of that is not real. Like, what you're seeing is not real.
Right, both ways too, and
both ways.
And having it on the side that you agree with being fake is just as damaging. So it's like
so much true. Yes.
It's a shit show. But
and we can't deny the fact that it's going to continue to reach a fever pitch going into November. Right?
Yeah.
The amount of like information that we're going to be fed that's not real, just the way we did 4 years ago, right? Like, people have to really try to seek out the facts, seek out the truth, and like even Mark and I the other day, we were listening to someone that we fundamentally didn't agree with, but it's like, he reminded me that we have to hear from people, right? Like, you have to take in all of it so that you can make the most educated decision possible versus just like listening to your one news outlet all the time and like taking that for the full truth. Yeah.
I don't know. Do you all have anxiety over November? Because I know.
Major fucking anxiety. Look at my face.
Jason said this morning, he's like, can fucking November just happen? God damn it.
It's like a cloud of anxiety.
I wanted to touch on a couple of things and then sort of bring us into the umbrella of fitness stuff. I know so Be Free does a lot of stuff. So, I want to go back to another thing that I had in terms of self-care that you guys had touched on, and like turning off the news and not doing that stuff and taking time to breathe and taking time to move your body. I was also saying to Ashley before we started is that, I can tell sort of what Ian was saying too, of like, I can feel in my body, like I get physically sick, like all the time about this stuff. Like I feel it in my body, and logically I know what the right things to think and say and do are, but I can get physically sick, and so there's certain responses I had to have of I had to stop coaching for the month of September. First, I had a death in my family, but also just I had to really take care of myself because I didn't have enough energy to give out to other people. So, and that's sort of like, I like to give the example to people at Be Free too, is I preach self-care all the time. And that's part of the fitness journey. That's part of how you take care of your body, is really making those difficult choices when you have to, right? So I had to get creative about other ways that fed my soul in terms of making money for September. But I also knew if I didn't do that, I wouldn't have a business. So I just wanted to make that point. And I think that what's really cool about all our three businesses is I do that, but I sort of also have like a sort of an arm of recovery. So, I'm in recovery, and so I do a lot of the coaching with people of color, but I also do a lot of coaching with racial trauma, all that kind of stuff. But Ashley, I know you mentioned fear, and then Ian, you mentioned just in terms of, I just love the whole image of reconstructing like Black men is what I visualized when you when you were talking about InnerCity. I just saw like streams of people coming out of jail having a place to be and a place to work. But I don't know if you guys want to talk about like a niche that you have, or how you like the connection between social justice and fitness, and how you see that really impacting the world. It was a long-winded question.
I'm going to answer that the best way I can, because it has multiple parts. So there's this aspect of myself and my own, I guess to use your word, Ayanna, like self-care. Part of my self-care is making sure the people that I serve in this industry, who are mostly white and affluent, part of my self-care is letting them know how I feel, what I'm going through, and the role that they play in that, right? So people have to know that, back when we were in the studios, like to come up and touch my hair or to touch my skin or my muscles or something, like people have to know that that's not okay. And here are the reasons why, right? So a simple part of social justice for me is trying to help move the community forward, because in some aspect, people don't know what they don't know. Another aspect is people don't know because they don't seek out the truth, right? So then that leaves me in this place of how much what's my work? What's my role in this? And how much am I supposed to be giving versus how much should people be seeking, right? If they say they want to be allies, then there's a lot of opportunity for them to create that path for themselves, and that's their work, right? So I'm interested in like where we intersect and where that comes together, because it can't always just be Black people saying, don't do this, read this book, watch this movie, donate to this charity. It just gets, at some point, it's like, you got to fucking do some shit yourself, The other part of that is working with kids through the Courage campaign. I've seen how their trauma has like manifested without them even knowing that there's trauma, right? So when I have a 10 or 11-year-old already talking about white men in particular being at the top of the sort of social chain, it's like they shouldn't already be thinking of themselves in terms of being less than. So like the fact that that message is already in their head, the fact that they understand on some level, who Donald Trump is and what's happening to this country because of his lack of leadership, right? Like that's the other part for me, is like, when I'm working with these kids, how do I try to mitigate the damage that society is is doing to them. And how do I, when we take it in terms of fear and courage, how do I help them? How do I help them unlock the best parts of themselves? How do I allow them to feel freedom in who they are and what they look like? Right. So for me, social justice, like, you're never going to see me marching out in the street. That's not my activism. And I feel comfortable saying that publicly, right? Like, I have my lanes, right? And part of that is like trying to help this community of Black and brown children. And part of that is trying to help, my white clientele find their journey to activism. And that's my cone of social justice at the moment.
I love that you said that about the protests, because I think a lot of people are afraid to say that out loud, or a lot of people of color, because then people call them out being like, well, you're not helping, which is bullshit. And it's tiring. Like, I have a Love and Revolution group that I have on Cape Cod, and I know when Jacob Blake died, everyone wanted to do another protest, and I was like, you guys can do it. I don't have that in me anymore. Like, and it's not to say that protesting is, bad at all.
Right.
But I think it's smart to choose different ways of being and taking action, and really honing in on what makes sense for you, because that's where you take action. Like, white people always come to me being like, what can I do? I know I don't mean to be disrespectful of that, but it's like, where are your skills, and where are you looking internally in terms of your own anti-racism and in terms of your own bias? And there's where you take action.
Yes.
And then let's be really, really smart about it. It doesn't have to be this like constant big thing of protesting. Although I get why that's there. I get why it makes change. I'm all about it. I'm woohoo, let's go. I'm always that way.
Yes.
But sometimes I just got to meditate.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. Sorry, Ian.
So,
go ahead.
What was the question?
I just go off on tangents.
So, like my niche, like place in this intersection of fitness and social justice. Is that the question?
Yeah, and just how do you see it just impacting both, and what's your thoughts on it? And you have a really, really unique way of doing it that most places don't.
Yeah.
And I mean, the whole prison thing is just a whole nother conversation that I feel like we could do a whole nother thing on, because
well,
and police and all that kind of stuff. I mean, I don't know if we're going to get into all that today, but I do think that you have a positive impact on the result of some of that.
Yeah, and I enjoy these. So all my conversations are always like explaining people what we do, and I don't ever get to like take a deep dive into why we do it, why it's necessary, and things like that. So this is almost cathartic for me, because I'm just always like explaining what we do, and I sometimes see blank faces, because like sometimes some people aren't even there understanding what we do, because it is unique, but at the same time, like you said, it's effective. So here's why it's effective. It's because of the power dynamic flip. So like Ashley mentioned, you have kids already thinking they have no power over a white man. And I don't mean power over, but it's not equal.
Right.
But so that starts super, super young. And when you end up going through the criminal justice system, that gets internalized over and over and over. And you combine that with lack of resources, and just general concerns over safety and community protection. That's what turns into this street violence. So what we do, and believe it or not, as like tough and badass as some of these dudes might be portrayed in the media, like most of their actions are based out of fear, trauma, and care and love for their family, to be honest, as fucked up as that is in society, it is not for lack of care, and it's not for lack of morals. That's a big misperception, is like any violence in the city is just immoral, people running around with guns. But I do not condone any violence, and part of my mission is to help, young people see that that's not a way. But at the same time, people not understanding where it comes from is part of the problem as well. So what we try to do is flip that power dynamic. They've been, pushed down, like you said, Ashley, on that social ladder their whole lives. And we just try to provide resources that they've never had. So, help getting a license, help getting a debit card, help getting a ride, because, public transportation can be unsafe for the people we work with. And once they're comfortable and they are ready to actually be a trainer, we have to give them a job, a skill, help them with a skill. They have everything they need besides someone willing to teach them something often. So once they have learned how to be a personal trainer, they literally become the expert. So you have dudes that have been in and out of jail their whole life, shot multiple times, being the expert in a meeting between them and the CEO of a tech startup. You know what I'm saying? So that is powerful just on paper. And then it's really, to use like kind of a corny word, it's kind of magical when those people spend an hour or 2 or 3 together every week. It's amazing what will happen. Now, that one person's life might get changed. That's not going to end street violence. Our student trainer making income, that might save their lives, but it's not going to end street violence. But at least we are changing the perspective of each client and helping that one person. But where we try to get that message out is by get our trainers in front of discussion panels and educational workshops where they can speak to their experience growing up, their experience with systemic racism and then mass incarceration, and then also their experience as a person coming out of jail and trying to work, because that is not understood by 99% of the companies, like what that actually means. And most companies will just write you off immediately if you have any sort of record.
If you have a story, right? Yeah.
Regardless, it could be you could have stole $20 because your baby sister, was hungry. Like literally, there are stories like that. And then there's a whole other can of worms with like probation and loop and bullshit loops. Not like what's the opposite of a loop of I can't think of the word, but it's basically like a bullshit little technicality that
they get stuck on that, and right. Mm-hmm.
And so we take like dudes come out of jail, and we're literally like, if they want to, we'll put them with a client the next day if we connect with them and we feel they're ready, and they'll share those experiences if they know the client. And we have clients every day, white, brown, whatever, who have no idea what they actually go through and why they actually ended up where they ended up, because that's not what you see on the news. You see, or even TV, like TV shows, like you don't see the awful shit that leads up to it, and you don't see the big systems at play that contribute to it. So we're just trying to amplify their voice. If we're not amplifying their voices, then our mission will fall flat, because they need to be heard, because there's silence, and there's silence through mass incarceration and people not caring about street violence. They think it's, oh, that's just over there. That's that dangerous neighborhood. Don't go in there. And when white people think about it like that, that's what keeps it going. So we tell people to look inside every time. What are your biases about that neighborhood?
Mm.
Did you know that only like 4% of the streets in Boston have ever had any gun violence on them? Just 4%. but you get whole neighborhood in Roxbury, Dorchester. Oh, don't go in there. Like what do they think's gonna happen? But that's what
I'm just laughing because it's so true. It's like really like I've lived in lots of them. Like what do they think's gonna happen?
I drove kids around in the worst parts all day, giving them rides to and from the gym, and I came in with my own biases. I didn't. Right. I mean, who knows what it's like to be in those neighborhoods? And I was like, after a year of driving kids around in those neighborhoods, I was like, oh, it's like every other fucking neighborhood. And
it's actually really nice. It's like community. It's like comfy. I love like.
Yep. More people talking and yeah, I mean,
sharing, more people loving, more people hugging, more. It's like, oh my God.
Yep, and I knew that, but I hadn't But you still even black, brown people, you grow up with the same media portrayals. Right. So you think the same thing about those things, even if you still have that condition. So it's the only way is like, I'm not, you can't work for ICW and drive kids around in the neighborhoods, but you can train with someone once a week from them. So that's what we're trying to accomplish is that niche of like, that is not the dangerous neighborhood. That is not, Washington Street is not a wall that you can't cross because the other side is dangerous. Like our students say all the time, like, hey, come on, you see me in the South End? Like our one of our trainers says, come come say hi. Like we'll give you a drink, something like that. And it's like, it's true. It's just such a misperception. And the only way we can change it is by connecting people. So that's my personal. I think gift is a little immodest, but like my gift is that I'm able to.
Gift, bro. You got a gift.
My gift is the ability to connect people of all different, connect with all people of different backgrounds. So I'm trying to use that to get our trainers in front of people. Sorry, that was such a long answer, but
no,
I don't get to talk about like
so much stuff. I was like, I'm so proud of my little brother. People don't know.
I don't get to talk about the really cool, interesting parts about ICW because I'm constantly explaining the basics, which is great because that means I'm telling more people about the basics and people can look into it. But I also don't feel like I get to really, really like. We do some badass, like really cool shit that keeps big picture systemic stuff in mind while still keeping the trust and respect of the people that's hardest to get from.
Yeah. I mean, it's so great, the connection with all of it. And you said so much, I'm not gonna rephrase it. But I think also that one of the points too, just about building relationships is so important as well. I think all three of us do that really well. And sharing stories that haven't been shared, which I think is like, that is social justice, because what we are combating, you mentioned the media, which is such a huge reason as to why systemic racism is, sort of upheld. It's piece of it. I know there's like large pieces of it too, but it's one of the really big ones in terms of representing who's scary and who's not, and who we love and who we don't. Yeah. It's very clear. The media has and for my whole life, right? I had to teach Blessing very early on about images that she sees. Like she was 3 and I was teaching her about how important she was, and she was not going to see herself on there, and she was going to see some scary images just by default, and that's not real, and that has nothing to do with who she is and who Black people are. So yeah. So I mean, I started at 3. But just relationships. Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, no, I was gonna say like I check myself all the time of biases that have come into my head through the news. Like, yeah, as a kid, you see, because remember when like news was just like on at like 6 or whatever.
Yeah.
Like, my mom would be watching it, and it's always just like this awful thing happened, and then they show the mugshot of the dude with the do-rag. I'm like, right. I didn't think about it at the time. I'm like, one, you don't know that person did it. Two, are you sharing the story about the white kid that got arrested for weed and like beat up the kid in the suburb? No. So it's like those things I working with the people most impacted by the system at the moment is like very eye-opening into biases that have been implemented in me without my approval. You know what I'm saying?
I'm glad you said that. I think it's like, I think the more I dive into bias and stereotype, the more I realize that like it's, you know, like it's literally just your brain's way of like triaging, right? Like decisions, like, am I safe? Am I okay? And then when it gets dangerous is like all these images that we've been fed. And for people of color, it's a lot of self-hatred. And I think that, you know, we all have biases, like our brain just does it. But then if left unchecked, like that's when we get into trouble, right? So I love how you say like you're always checking yourself. Like everybody, regardless of your color, your race, whatever, should always be checking yourself, because you probably have some fucked up shit in there that you need to, that's probably doing harm, and you don't even realize ways in which you are perpetuating trauma for different groups of people. It's wild, actually. It's wild. Yeah. For lack of better. What'd you say, Ian? I'm sorry.
I was going to say our founder, who's a white man, people ask us at the end of calls what they should do. And, you know, I love working for John because he really understands, he's a white man leading a organization that's supposed to be empowering Black people. So that's in itself something that you have to be careful about. But to his credit, he is always answering the question of what people should do, to saying, look at your own biases. Right. And he is constantly looking at his, and that's how he became dedicated to this mission, because he realized his biases were so effed up that they were contributing to all the inequities, and that bothered him so much that it motivated him to find a model that flips that. And it really is like, people maybe need to stop, you know, I'm not saying stop reading, but it almost seems like there needs to be more self-reflection, and that goes right into action, as opposed to all this, you know, all this like asking people questions, and like, you know, it's, think about when you see that person, what do you think? It's okay to think it, because you're not doing it on purpose. And that's where everyone gets defensive. It's like, if you're saying, Ashley, that everyone needs to do that, black, white, brown, then why should the white person feel bad about it? But they double down on it when they do that, because then they cut themselves off from doing it ever again. And then it cycles. So people, that's what we tell people. And I hope you all do the same. I'm sure you do, but it's like, look at your thought processes of like everything that happens, and whether it's your personal thing or what you see on the news or whatnot. So it's hard, because it's like people will just want that answer. Oh, do this and you'll help. It's like, you got to do the hard. I know Brenna, my wife, always says social justice is a very spiritual. You can't take the two apart, social justice and spirituality, because once you start looking in, you realize your place in it, and you realize it's holding you back from being your best person, and you're contributing to other people hurting. So it's the hard work that people don't want to do. That's kind of sometimes human nature, but if people really care, then that's where it starts.
Yeah.
Did I freeze?
Yeah.
Yeah. I can hear you though.
You did, yeah, but we can hear you.
We can hear you.
I'm looking real cool. There we go. Am I allowed to ask Ashley a question?
Yeah, of course. You can ask me a question too if you want. Oh my God, he's like, wait, I can dig into my big sister's brain. Go for it.
I'm interested. Maybe it's not even a question. Maybe just conversation. But are the guys that come to ICW often don't even have a chance at school because they're literally like trying to stay alive. And school can because of Boston's weird system. You go into school, our guys can even feel dangerous. And when I say our guys, I mean they're older than high school age typically, but I'm talking about like they're growing up, like they don't feel safe going to school for a lot of reasons. So I guess I don't know. It's not really a question. I just kind of there's such an interesting connection between what you do, and then don't get me wrong. There are people that are going through school and then still end up in the same place. But
yeah,
I'm wondering. Obviously, you use movement. What's your philosophy around like movement preventing people to succumbing to all the conditioning and self doubt or less than feeling? Like, what's your philosophy on movement changing that?
That's so good. That was my next question.
This may be an unpopular statement, but we know that systemic racism exists, and in a lot of ways, for a lot of people, it can make the conditions ripe to ruin someone's life in various ways. And I also think that it's up to us to try to find ways to transcend that. So, right, like movement is great, it's amazing, but like the person has to use that as a tool. Like the person has to be willing to embrace that. So like while all these crazy things exist, someone has to be willing to say, like, to take their personal responsibility to say that like I'm going to use this vehicle to try to go somewhere else, right? So I think that movement can be healing if you want it to be healing, but also we see many instances where people, for instance, like especially in group fitness, I think there's so much like body image issues and disordered eating, right? So movement can also be the thing that like pulls people into like the depths of darkness. And so I think like for me, it's something that I connect with so heavily because my dad was a boxer and movement was a part of the fabric of my family life growing up. It was what connected my parents to us and vice versa. And so I learned that not only was it an outlet for just like my physical being, but it was my connection to people that I love. It was my connection to people that I didn't know. It was a way to be an icebreaker, like being sometimes the only Black person on a field hockey team or a soccer team or in a dance class. And so I was exposed to the idea that movement can open up so many doors, right? Outside of like college scholarships and stuff like that, just like human to human, it can open up many doors. And I think that that's part of why I think it's essential to student life. So there's that piece of it. There's a piece of it that it does help me personally through trauma. Not only is it a way to like escape for a second, but it's also sometimes a way to go deeper and to look at myself and to look at who I want to be and why and stuff like that. It helped me certainly get through the death of my father, which is part of why the Courage campaign even started, because like that took me back to my roots. That took me back to like my truth and my light in a time that was really dark. And then I think just like on like a statistical level, our country, we're so fucking lazy. Like we see a lot of people moving. Like we see movement because we're in movement careers, but like McDonald's is thriving right now in quarantine. Like
Wendy's.
I mean, like, so just on a baseline level, people need to be fucking moving, because especially people of color, because we die from diseases that are preventable. Like,
so true, girl. Preach it on. Oh my God, so true.
So like just on a survival level, it's like we need to be moving, eat the fucking kale, right? And then like and then there's like all the deeper stuff too. So I don't even know if I answered your question, but like, I don't know. I'm like,
I love that you just went on to and put some good shit in your body while you move it at the same time.
It all counts in my brain. This is my like madness. It's all Ian, I don't even know what you said anymore. I feel like it's been
you answered.
I think no, it was great. It was great. I love that you went there. I think what's so cool is that we keep talking about trauma, right? So all of this, I was on a panel the other day, and all of it, I was talking about people of color and how traumatic this is. And it's also, I'm not discounting that it's traumatic for white people too. I mean, it is, we're all experiencing trauma right now, whether we like it or not. And we're all experiencing, it's not even PTSD anymore. We're all in active trauma. So it's like,
yeah.
But it's also for people of color, they're in PTSD and now they're in active trauma. So it's like, those are the differences, and that all lands in the body. And so I think, for all of us, for me, I think that what you just said is so perfect, just around healing the body and having those things so at the forefront, and then how you take care of yourselves, and then how you heal. So I think part of, and I think Jackie's on here, she's my 500-hour teacher, she's amazing, but I mean, part of how I've also dealt with it and taught people and Be Free, particularly around images, even some of and I do it through yoga and through movement and mindfulness, but also, I mean, you can do it in such a non-invasive way of having people, right? Because white people, Ian mentioned, it gets so fucking defensive, right? But it's like, you can have conversations with people around this kind of stuff and just feel it in their body, like, and then have discussions around it. But also with yoga, I think too, is what's so powerful is just what's activating right now for all of us, and the movement stuff is just, it's so scary. So all this stuff is really like coming up and out. But I do just a lot of restorative yoga for people of color. It's really just like how to keep your mind and your body safe during this time is so important. So
what's the,
and it's similar.
Oh, sorry. I wanted to know, like, what do you give people to like take home? Like, do you give people like sort of like action steps to like when they're not, you know what I mean, in the room with you, when they're not being actively led through any sort of like healing? What do you tell them to do at home?
It used to be part of my training. I'm just launching a training, but I'll get to that in a second. But yeah, so it's a 3-month model that I designed that really teaches people each step of the way of how to get the trauma out of their body, which I think, if you just go to a therapist and talk to a social worker or whatever, you're just talky. You're not really, like you said, you're not really doing the fucking work. Yeah. You're not doing the work on your own. You're not taking the action steps yourself to actually do the stuff. So in order to actually heal and really do the work, whether it's anti-racism, social justice, or fitness,
right,
it's taking action yourself and having the courage to actually do that. So so each session I meet with them, and then it's all divided into different stuff. So some of it's, the first step is always meditation. It's always grounding. It's always getting your body and your mind right. I have to teach breathing first because breathing is through all of it. So like the first month really is like they have to do meditation on their own, and then they have to write about it, and then they have to talk about what came up. And then they have to get really uncomfortable. Like people know the first session is like they know that Be Free Coaching and Wellness, you're getting uncomfortable for the next months. I will hold space for you and hold, and love you through this, but like you're going through a whole, you're unlocking shit, and then we're gonna figure out where it is that you wanna manage that. So a lot of it's writing, a lot of it's action, a lot of it is like I do a session of personal training with them and figure out how to like really get anger out with like really aggressive movement, which I love. So they do the homework, and if they don't do the homework, it's not like I'm mad at them, it's not like it's a whole thing. What gets really powerful is like, where's the block? Like, why didn't you do that? Like, what's going on there? How can we help you with that? And usually there's something really powerful that comes through that. And then once that gets sort of unlocked, they're like flying high and soaring, and it's good. But thanks for asking that question. Yeah. I forget that people know I have a studio and there's classes, but they don't really know a lot about the coaching model. So thanks for asking me.
No problem.
But we're coming up on the hour. I said we go 45 minutes, but it was going so well. But we do have to start to wrap up. So I don't know if there's people that have questions out there. If you guys just want to put in the chat box, we can address some of it. This is recorded, so I know that I always I'll send it to both of you, and then I'll pop it up right on my Facebook feed after. But or if there's any closing comments that you guys want to make.
I wanted to address Jackie's comment. Hopefully she's still on. Hopefully she's still here. About the book clubs, and I want to say to Jackie, like, yes, it's absolutely better than nothing, right? It's like it's a really great first step, and especially because a book club is community driven, right? So like there's discussion and there's like other people's energy and stuff like that. I think like for me, and I'll only speak for myself, I'm always thinking about the like, and right, like what comes out of that, because we can't sit in a space where we insulate ourselves in like books and podcasts. And I think that there's so much that all of us have to learn. I mean, I'm uncovering stuff that personally I feel I should have learned in my K through 12 education, right? Like no one taught me no one taught me how rich it is to be a Black person. No one really stressed the fact that, right, like my ancestors built this fucking country that we're all
girl.
Right? You know what I mean? So like I think the books are essential because you got to learn, right? And you got to be able to speak from a place of truth. But if we sit in a space where we're like reading books and just like having discussions behind the scenes, like nothing's going to change. And it reminds me of the fact that 4 years ago, people were like, there's no way Donald Trump is going to get elected. He's right. Like, but then like what, 50-something% of white women voted for him. And I'm like, wow. Cause every person I know said that they were voting for Hillary. Right. So we got to be careful with the like behind the scenes kind of like on the sly stuff, because it can get really dangerous. But thank you for doing the book club, but like also be looking ahead.
So Jackie was one of the first people that stepped up to do like a POC training. So I'm in her. There's 2 separate avenues. So there's just POC, and then we joined together.
Okay.
So it's pretty fucking cool, Jackie.
Yeah. Thank you, Jackie.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay, I'm reading her comment. We're on the same page, Jackie. Yes.
And I don't want to put Jackie in the spot, but she came in our group the other day, and it's all Black women, and we're all very outspoken, and she's the only white one, and she was saying stuff around science, right? People gave her feedback, and she didn't fucking get defensive. It was so nice.
Oh shit!
It was just like, oh yep, okay, I can see how that relates. Yep, oh my god, yeah, totally, yep, Like,
okay, Jackie.
And they got into this other discussion about like Black women in birth and like how and pain and Black people and science around. It was like amazing. So
that's awesome. That's awesome.
Yeah, they're out there. They're just, and anyway. Sorry, Ian, did you have a final comment?
Man, there's so much.
There's so much. Let's do it again, too.
Yeah, I'm down to do it again because we just scratched the surface on. So what I want to mention real quick is like I talked about fitness as a powerful movement to like flip the power dynamic, but like it's also important to realize, and this connects to both of you, is like the guys that we get through our program, fitness also, in a sense, like saved them. Not because of their profession, but personally. If they don't have that connection to fitness, if they're not going to the gym in the federal facility, if they're not, shooting hoops in their neighborhood, it gets a lot worse for all the guys that we work with. So I don't want to I want to honor that part of like the movement stuff as well. Even though, I mean, it does connect to me, but my circumstances growing up are far different from theirs. But I understand that connection of like, there's nothing else to work on except working on yourself when you're locked up. And that gets people through, that can get people through really hard circumstances. So I love that part of our dynamic at ICW, and I always want to. That's an easy way for people to understand, and then you kind of can. That's kind of like an entry point to the more complex, more complex issues that that they're going through in order to stay surviving. Like the fitness kind of helps on a ground level, and so that just ties into my last thing, which, for anyone listening to this, I was talking about like looking at those biases internally. I want to put it into something that's very tangible. Everyone works for a different type of company, different type of place. Like I would really challenge people to challenge their company to understand what it looks like to hire people that have criminal records and hire people that have been incarcerated, and understand that, like, first understand it and then implement it into your company as a way to tap into untapped resources or untapped talent, if you will. It is just mind-blowing how many companies just that Corey, like how inhuman is that to look at just a report that comes up when you run a report in a database, as opposed to looking at the individual. I would challenge people to look at their company's practices in that and challenge them if they are discriminatory, and help make hiring returning citizens much more normalized. There's studies out there. I think the organization's called 70 Million Jobs. There's studies out there that show how it makes your company better. So I don't want to hear the like bottom line, bullshit. I think it's you're just looking at it the wrong way if that's your thinking. I think you have to think about true diversity and strengthening your company through that. And then you're making society better as well. It's everybody wins. So that's kind of what's been on my mind recently. I'm trying to bring that into ICW as something where we can go beyond fitness and educate companies on that. So that's kind of where we're going, or where I'm trying to add, not change, but add to our services.
Yeah, I mean, I think you're talking about access and equity, which is, where we're at. And if people really want to make some change, they gotta shift the way that they're doing things, which is holding on to systemic racism. And one way to do that is by not allowing, people of color with some history. And some of the stuff, like you said, the stories are very minimal in terms of how Black people have been held in jail, you know, they're wonderful. I mean, obviously, they're wonderful people. Of course they are. But like, I'm saying that because sort of that's what the assumption is, that they're not.
They're not even wonderful. They're just people.
I know.
That's the other thing. It's like they're just.
What am I trying to say here?
They're people. It's not yet.
Right. Exactly. That's why I caught myself like, wait, what am I trying to say?
No, I know what you meant, but that is something that keeps happening too. Is like, oh, we're only care about Black lives of people that are, they are doing great things. Like, well, why don't we look at the things that the people that aren't good people and see what created or caused that instead of judging. I know that obviously that's not what you meant, but it did remind me of like how much of that still happens.
No, and it's true. I caught myself being like the wonderful people, like, you know, no, they're just people that have a lot of skills. That's true. And I think just the final things I want to say too is, Ian, that you mentioned just about survival. I think that's such and movement connection piece too. And actually, I know you mentioned your dad, but certainly for me, I mean, I found yoga in recovery, and I would not be alive today if I didn't find yoga. And I cried on my mat, and I moved on my mat, and I taught people yoga in detox, in rehab. Like there was nothing that was going to stop my body from moving, but it was the only safe way I could feel the trauma that I had gone through in my life to really move through it. And I just wouldn't look away from it. So I think in that way, I also related to social justice, is that when people get really uncomfortable about stuff, particularly white people, when you're looking at it and you're like, oh my God, that's in my body, that's in me, right? That's where people get really freaked out. It's like there's ways to move through that, and then there's ways to move through it. And I think the way to do that is through yoga and movement and fitness. So and it, you know, you can release stuff, you can get really powerful and stuff. You know, there's ways to really identify those things. So I think, and the one thing about that too is like in terms of anti-racism, I also talk to people about, it's like, I wake up every day and I choose to be sober. If you're really into social justice, if you're really about this, you got to wake up every day and decide to be anti-racist. And how are you going to take that through your whole fucking day, right? Because Black people have to wake up every day and figure out how they're going to choose to survive. Yeah. So every single time I talk about this, I always end with it, because it's making a choice every single day that you're going to then take action. It's that one day you don't do it, same thing with recovery. That's the one day some shit's going to happen and go haywire. So that's what I have to say about that.
She said what she said. that's that.
Well, I want to thank you guys. Ian, thank you for bringing us together. It was so great.
Thank you for letting me out of your shadow.
You busted through that a long time ago.
I'm honored. It's an honor to be in your shadow. Appreciate you having us.
Oh, good. And I think we should do another one. And I think that's it. But have a wonderful day. Stay in the fight. Stay with it. And I appreciate you all for coming on.
Yeah, thank you both, and thank for anyone listening.
Yeah, thank you guys for tuning in, and I'll post the video, so please share if you were on and people weren't able to make it. So
InnerCityWeightlifting.com.
Oh,
InnerCityCampaign.com.
Hi, Cassie. Oh my gosh, she's like,
wait,
she's
I just said the website wrong. .org. Can you edit that? I said .com. It's not .com.
What is it?
.org.
Oh, InnerCityWeightlifting.org. I can put in the notes like of when I post it. I can probably do that. All right. Peace out, guys. I love you both.
Love you. Bye.